Hi, everyone. Thanks very much for joining the webinar today, Simplifying Your Complex Life. My name's Ian Kenny. If you've joined any of these webinars before, you've probably seen me before, but I'm Head of Product Management here at cPacket. However, I'm joined today by a special guest, Laslo. Laslo, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience today?
Hi there, my name is Laslo, and I moved to Portland at the beginning of the pandemic, where I started a position with cPacket as a senior systems administration engineer. I've helped cPacket with its growth in moving 2 data centers and 2 offices in about 2 years. Prior to this, about 16 years of experience deploying about 45 data centers, and have spent the past 20 years of my life basically implementing solutions. So hopefully that gives you an idea of what I can offer.
Perfect. Well, that just goes to show, Laslo, that you are the ideal person to help me explore this question of simplifying your complex life. And I think anyone who's survived these major projects of moving data centers, whether it be for companies like ourselves in the vendor space or in the kind of the public sphere of large tier 1 organizations, is certainly someone who can help me with explaining or simplifying their complex life. So look forward to the conversation today. Okay, I thought I would just quickly go back. Maybe you're familiar with who cPacket is. Maybe you've engaged with us before. Maybe you're an existing customer, things like that. But just to give you a quick reminder, established back 2007, based in the Bay Area. We work with a range of tier 1 companies across finance, across service providers, across all kinds of things, governments and all things. And we're very excited to be able to talk to you today. And we also connect with cloud providers, and I'm sure that'll come up in the conversation as we talk about various types of environments, AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. But I also wanted to set one other tiny thing before I let Laslo and I get into the meat and potatoes of the conversation, and just a quick refresh. It's kind of in our company name, Packets, but really I think a lot of the conversation today is going to be looking at where we get the data from to help people like yourself as you seek to roll out or maintain or grow large and complex environments. That the packet data, the network packet data, is the single source of truth that you can use to be able to help get to the best understanding, the best analytics, and allow you, the leader in that kind of an organization, to make the best business decisions. So anyway, as I said, it's a quick reminder of what cPacket is all about, and what you'll probably hear if you listen to a range of our webinars. You're probably going to hear a lot of those kinds of points reinforced. But anyway, let's get into the fun stuff, Laslo. The challenge of complexity. Where do you think we should begin our conversation today?
So the first thing that comes to mind is if you were to put my head in the center of that and turn those words into little clouds, it'd look like a cartoon depiction of what I'm thinking. Because that's what the challenge of complexity is. So one question would be, for example, there's a huge issue that's happening. Where do I even start?
Exactly. That is the ultimate question. Where to begin that troubleshooting? Is it the network? It's never the network. Is it the application? Is it the whatever else running in these no doubt complex environments? Isn't that right? That's probably something I'm sure you've experienced throughout your career, Laslo.
It is. I like to sort of just consider this perspective. I am not a manager. My job is to present management with information. So any tool that can give me that information, especially where I can assess the information, but then draw the attention of a C-level or of the higher level of organization to really evaluate like what it is that's important. but I need to be able to trust that information. I also need to know what I don't know, which is essentially what learning is. So I need to learn. I need something, a tool to show me what don't I know? It's not even a blind spot. Where are my blind spots? Is cPacket something that could help me?
Nope, that's a really good question. Hopefully, as we go through some of the following material, we'll be able to look at where we as a company seek to help our customers be able to discover. And that's a really good point you made there about the blind spots. It's not just a blind spot, it can be multifarious. How do you think, or how's your experience led you with regards to things like hybrid environments? Obviously, a large number of data centers, etc. Where does the hybrid challenges come into this complex world?
So again, with extreme pragmatism, as the person who's looking at the data, as somebody who genuinely looks at the features of products that can offer, and I'm looking for the information. I'm looking for what am I not seeing? What I usually end up finding is that somebody is very, very angry that there is a very large AWS bill and a lot of it's networking. Would cPacket have a product that can help me not only explain what's in that bill, but preempt that bill? It's identified. Can it help with with the challenges that have been overlooked, the hybrid challenges that a hybrid cloud brings?
No, absolutely. I think that's a really excellent point. And I think as people tried to unpick hybrid environments, as you say, you've got that bridge out into a cloud environment can bring a lot of value, can bring a lot of help, but there are definitely risks in terms of kind of bills running out of control and things like that. So really trying to understand where that data is coming from, where it's going to, is a vital part. And I certainly remember one customer who came to us and they turned on our cloud product and they were able to identify, I think it was just actually a single IP from a service that was calling in the wrong direction and really kind of impacting their overall performance. And they were able to adjust that because of something that we as an organization were able to help them with. What about kind of missing data? Where have you kind of ever come across a situation where that's added to your complexity, Laslo? Any thoughts on that?
Well, most of the tools I've used have been very either ad hoc, last minute, Wireshark type queries or summaries. But when asked, for example, like the GDPR, which is the European HIPAA, they have data storage requirements. And so if they ask, where's the data? Is that something I can answer easily? Is that something that this product can help me with?
Oh, it's a huge question and definitely something that we should be able to say two thumbs up yes with, both protecting the data, as you say, that there's all kinds of requirements, and then making sure that data is encrypted so that no people can access it who shouldn't have access to it and things like that. Absolutely vital, and certainly something that we can bring to the table. Now, the other question, the kind of inverse side of the missing data is the kind of too much data. And I'm sure, when I started in networking, I definitely didn't have gray hair like I have today. It was like 10 meg and it was all these kind of things. And now we're at 100 gig, 400 gig, whatever's coming after that. There's kind of too much data often. And that's definitely a huge challenge, wouldn't you agree?
I do. If I have too much data, then I don't have what's important to report. My job is when I'm asked for specific information to provide it. And if I can not only provide it, but point to where it lives, where I think it's fantastic. So, so one thing I was thinking about is with new workloads. Like, for example, let's say we're deploying a data center that is part of that CDPR or HIPAA, and we decide to deploy a new app. Is cPacket able to help us with understanding what the impact would be?
Oh yeah, no, 100%. That's an excellent point, by the way, Laszlo, because certainly, I'm sure we've all experienced we're working with different organizations or whatever, even in our personal lives, and hey, there's a new service being rolled out, and obviously, as an organization, maybe even including folks listening to the webinar today, they may be in the process of trying to roll out new workloads, or I suppose often these days, new apps that are trying to give maybe customers or patients or whatever it might be access to that data. cPacket is part of being able to offer you the understanding of where you're maybe going to run out of bandwidth. What's the kind of the burst? How much headroom do we actually have in the infrastructure today? And what's been the estimate for the additional requirements from the architects, etc.? If you've got a 90% full or 75% or 60% full environment, and you've set goals to not go above a certain number, and you're not able to do it, you know that in advance, which means that you can maybe change your infrastructure, expand it, and then make sure that you're able to address the needs of that new application or that new workload that you're trying to get rolled out, and allowing you, the administrator, someone sitting in your seat, Laszlo, who's able to say, well, actually, I now know what I need to do, and I have all of that data. A huge challenge, and definitely something vital for our customers.
Ian, do you think, does cPacket have a product that can help me with the sun breaking through the clouds here in Portland after a week of rain?
Once again, there's a lot of rain. There's a lot of types of complexity, isn't there? There's a lot of types of complexity, and sunshine in Portland is certainly not one that I'm perfectly able to solve today. But no.
Well, thank you for your candor.
No, it's a good point. It's a good point. But no, the idea that sometimes those packet captures. I think you mentioned Wireshark earlier in your comments. We have a lot of customers who eventually get down. They come all the way down. They're able to look at the dashboards. We're going to talk about those again in a few minutes, I think. But the idea is, you need to be able to kind of capture some of that data. You've got to be able to maybe even replay that data back into the network, etc., as part of maybe a testing environment. Huge kind of challenges in making that happen reliably. But the bottom line is that, we as cPacket are trying to make that as seamless as possible for the customers, so that you can, pick on that worst day, that worst time of the year, and be able to roll out good quality test environment, test data, so that you are confident and comfortable that the next time that stressful environment comes to your infrastructure, you're ready to go. And that is really, really critical to our customers as well as to ourselves. How many times have you had to look for that device, Laszlo? That one that just sneaks onto the network and you're not quite sure where it came from. Is that something you've experienced in the past?
It does, because it's always such a source of anxiety. It's such an embarrassment to spend years working on a data center and then have a simple question like, where's this one device that's causing problems? And to completely draw a blank, it really erodes that trust that I am doing a good job, that the job is being done correctly. And it's, all of this is infrastructure, and we want our infrastructure to just work. It should be a thankless job, because it should just work. But when it doesn't, when you can't find a device, do you think cPacket can help us with that?
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%, Laszlo. Of course, that's the whole point, because we do have many customers just like yourself who are challenged and pressed in on every side, and they're obviously trying to find a particular device. We can help you search for that device. We know exactly which port it came from. We know exactly where it's going, and we're able to then, somebody can come in and just do a quick search for it. maybe an IP, maybe a name, whatever it might be, and they're able to just pop that up on the screen and say, oh, here it's in this rack over on this side of the data center as an example, or in a cloud environment, this is where the virtual machine is, etc. All of those things are really, really important to our customers as we help them try and simplify their complex environments. Okay, any other kind of closing comments here, Laslo? Or should we skip on to the next few things?
I don't. I was thinking about packet capture and what the speeds are, and I'm wondering, can you guys do 40 gig?
Yep, all the way up to 100 gig, and I'm going to tell you all about that in just a few moments' time, so that'll be great. But once again, if there's a question that anyone in the listening audience also wants to chip in, feel free to bash it in any of the locations that you see a text box. We'd love to be able to try and answer them as we either live or as we go through the conversation today. Okay, so we've talked about that. We've talked about where people want to start troubleshooting from, all of these kind of questions. How much is too much data, blind spots, or all of these kind of parts. The bottom summary is, from my perspective, and I'm sure Laslo can nod in agreement on this, is that our customers are trying to keep their services operating smoothly. And Laslo, I think you said it much better, to be honest, than my slide here. The idea is you want this to be a thankless job because it just works, right? And I think that whether you're maybe coming more from a kind of a security ops background, or whether it's in the network operations kind of teams, etc., as I say, whether you're protecting from cyber threats or you're trying to look at outages, which do happen, don't tell anybody, and things like that. Bottom line is that you are trying to keep things running smoothly, and we believe, cPacket, that we're able to really help you deliver on that. I do love the odd quote. Once again, Nora, people quote sometimes very famous figures, etc., and I know that that happens in many organizations. But this little quote from Gartner here I thought was very telling from today's environment. Organizations have become far more vulnerable to, this is focusing on the security side, cyber threats, because digital information and technology are now so heavily integrated into day-to-day work. And I'm sure there'll be lots of nodding from you, Laslo, when we start talking about things like that, working in that kind of a team where you're trying to keep all of this complex infrastructure running 24/7, so to speak. Great. Let's have a quick look. So let's talk about hybrid. I mentioned that a little bit, and I'm sure these are environments that you folks listening today are kind of struggling with. So where can cPacket help you address some of these blind spots and that idea of the kind of the hybrid system? What I've done here is taken an environment. You've got some kind of a data center, maybe it's a colo, things like that. Maybe you've got some distributed locations, maybe smaller environments, branches, or smaller medical facilities or production environments, whatever it might be. And you've got this kind of distributed around the country or the world. And then you've also added probably cloud into that environment, maybe one of the AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, things like that, or probably multiple ones of those, depending on the exact workload or application you're trying to roll out. And what we're trying to show here is that we can bring kind of either physical infrastructure or virtual kind of cloud appliances so that you're able to really get the best view of the entire infrastructure to try and minimize those number of blind spots. We have a lot of customers who have big pieces of infrastructure, big load balancers, big firewalls, all of this stuff, and they're monitoring either side of that. So they're checking the traffic as it kind of loops through these particular devices to make sure you're not getting too much packet loss, et cetera, as part of that conversation. So really, we're able to help you strongly get the best set of visibility across these hybrid environments. And then there's that little figure in the top right there, whether it's metadata and you're getting those dashboards, whether it's the PCAPs, when you really need to kind of zoom right in on a particular set of packets, or things even like NetFlow. We can make that available too for those of you who prefer those kinds of tooling. So the point is you can stay in your hopefully relatively comfortable office or desk while cPacket is doing that hard work on the ground in your infrastructure, making sure that you're able to see what's going on. Okay, let's have a quick look. I won't spend too long on this slide. If this is something you'd like to know more about, trying to understand how all of the products fit together, I'd love to be able to do that. Feel free to reach out. I've put some contact details at the end, or bash a question in, and we can follow up with you directly. Bottom line is, we as an organization are able to help you all the way from the taps, all the way to the management and visualization appliances at the top there, and everything in between. I'm going to talk a couple of the details as we jump in. Okay, so let's talk about what we are really trying to say here. How can we actually help you with that simplification of the complexity in your environment? Well, bottom line is, we talked about speeds, we talked about missing data. The NG family, or the whole CView line, is able to go all the way from effectively 1 gig all the way to 100 gig, and is able to bring that full matrix technology, non-blocking on the ingress side, making sure we're not dropping any packets, and I'll show you how we do that in just a second. And the idea that you can do pre-ingress, post-egress filtering, and driving kind of millisecond analytics and nanosecond time stamping, et cetera, And as I said, if there's something resonating with you, you'd like to know more about it, please bash in a question. Clearly, APIs are important, as well as connecting into the management framework that we're going to talk about in a second. Just kind of quickly highlighting a couple of the differences with our solutions and how we do them in this NG family. We use an FPGA behind each of the ports, not a shared FPGA, but an FPGA instance behind each of the ports, allowing us to do smart processing with dedicated resources, whether it be deduplication, whether it be millisecond granularity analytics, etc. Some of our competitors, they don't do it that way. They preferred a different model, and you've got lots of opportunities for packet loss, which will just increase that challenge of missing data that we were speaking about earlier. So as I said, definitely something we'd love to tell you more about and go into some hardcore examples. Okay, a couple of the key differentiators here. Lossless performance, I just mentioned. Live network search, so looking for those lost devices, as Laslo was mentioning earlier. Millisecond analytics, definitely more cost effective because you're getting that entire probe on every port. You're not trying to have to compensate or oversubscription issues, etc., etc. The licensing is very straightforward, and you can even bring your own transceivers, BYOT, as I've now coined. Okay, what about some of the other aspects? We talked about capture. We talked about trying to understand what's happening there. So we've got 10 gig to 100 gig lossless capture to disk with lots of compression technologies in there too to increase your storage capabilities. We've got fast querying and flow indexing as the data is being written to the drive, so you don't need to go back and search later. You already know the answer to where these packets are on the disk. And we're able to extend that out to about 2 petabytes, just over 2 petabytes worth of storage. Obviously, in a high-performing environment, like I'm sure many of you have, clearly that's not going to last all that long, but it is going to give you enough to work with so that you're not going to get tripped up with that data having fallen off the end of the disk just when you needed it. Clearly, things like Wireshark, and I know that certainly I've used Wireshark back in the day, and I know Laslo works regularly with that kind of technology, and I'm sure many of us here have got our experiences using Wireshark. We've actually taken that and integrated it right into the product. Shouldn't be the first point of call, but it is available. It is there if you want to really dig into the packets and not drag around large files across your infrastructure. And the same again, you're going to plug this in to that central management console. So definitely a lot of interesting things here. Recently published Tolly report. Hopefully you've heard me talking a little bit about that, or you listened in on our Tolly webinar. If this was YouTube, I could probably post it in the comments below. I think that's what a lot of people say in these kind of moments. But the bottom line is, if you want to read that Tolly report and see what is happening with the CStore 100S, I'd love to be able to send that to you, or you can download it from the website today. Okay, a couple of differentiators. 100 gig sustained in a compact form factor. Data encryption at rest is very important to a lot of our customers. That's, as you say, kind of a vital component of the overall system. And then being able to do the 100 gig capture, the encryption, etc., but while having that sustained performance with the indexing and the querying capabilities is vital. Same goal with the complex and tiered licensing. Provides you enterprise-grade analytics, cloud connectors coming soon, and really allowing you, the user, to be able to rely on the fact that the data will be there, so that you don't need to be there in the middle of the night debugging complex problems. Just let that data be captured continuously and then come back in and look where those challenges were over the weekend on Monday morning. Things like that really try and help you thrive in the environment you find yourself in. And lastly, but certainly not leastly, cClear. So just a management, or I shouldn't say just, but it's a management single pane of glass with lots of dashboards and the ability to create. And I've got a couple of examples on the next page, just to give you some examples of what's going on, whether it be baselining, dependency mapping, whether you want to see the multicast flows, whether you want to understand the top talkers. All of these kinds of things are vital and available through the cClear itself. So once again, a single pane of glass and things like that. As I say, all of these systems are accessible via APIs, and maybe somebody listening today is spending time in that kind of a role where they're creating scripting, or they're trying to bring together lots of complex systems into a single logical flow. All of that is available with the cPacket system. And I was on a customer call just yesterday, and the customer was saying how well documented our API is. So that's great. I'm always pushing the team, and I know all of us are trying to push the envelope in terms of creating high quality documentation, usable documentation for you to be able to get the best out of the appliance. So very exciting. Always good to hear that when you get that live feedback from the customers. These are just a couple of examples. Once again, I call these the pretty pictures, but when you're in that war room type situation, and I'm sure Laslo can attest to many times having probably been through that in his career. I think you mentioned this idea of connecting out into the management, etc. You need to have the pretty pictures. Now, once again, it's much more than that. You can drill down into these kind of systems. In the top right there, that kind of wiggly diagram is really trying to look at multicasts, and maybe that's something that you've struggled with when they get lost in your environment, why certain machines didn't register properly, etc., etc. All of that is available through our tooling, whether it be kind of looking at performance and how things are broken out across different parts of the infrastructure, and whether you're looking at microbursts or things like that. All of these components are very important to our customers, and probably to yourself if you're listening to this webinar today. So they're all flexible, they're dynamic, they're updated in real time, and they're obviously easy to add, remove, and change as your needs evolve. And as I say, I think Laslo mentioned this, or certainly when we were talking before going live, key thing really is that these networks are constantly evolving. Your network is probably constantly evolving, as even our network is. You're adding new resources, you're adding different locations, you're increasing the performance, etc., etc. Maybe you're not using much multicast today, but maybe in 6 months, that's going to be a heavy usage in your environment. So as those needs change and evolve, you can easily jump onto the cClear in this case, adjust those diagrams, adjust those data sets, and you're able to then really be focused in on where is bringing most value to the organization. Okay. I think that's the bulk of what I was going to talk about. But the question I have for you, though, Laslo, as we're kind of drawing to a close now, was I able to actually convince you? What do we think? Do we think that when you were sitting on the other side of the table, so to speak, and you were driving a lot of these data center projects and things, do you think I would be able to help? Do you think cPacket would be able to help you deliver either faster or better or more accurately on your goals or the goals of the organizations you were working for?
I think so. When it comes to the features that we need, I also don't know where else to turn.
Right. Great.
I need the data.
Okay, perfect. That is excellent. So hopefully, if you've got any questions, please type them in. We'd love to answer them either now or later on. That's basically where we're at today. So do we have any questions? Facilitate. Oh, here we are. A couple of questions. Why is missing data such a problem? Well, that's a really good question. I suppose for me, as I said with my little kind of triangle diagram, the idea really is that we want customers to have all of the data, because if they have all of the data, they're able to make the most informed decision. And that can be not only, it's probably a couple of points there, it's not only just in terms of maybe the brokering and making sure you're not dropping packets on ingress, or you're obviously as a broker, you're sending those packets out to other tools, not just cPacket, you may be sending it to an NDR tool or IPS or everything else. You need to have all of the packets. If you start only getting part of those packets, what you're effectively going to take that triangle and turn it into a more of a kind of a weird shape, because you're not going to have all of the data at the bottom. So that when you are sitting in Laslo's shoes and you're looking at the systems and you're trying to make sure you're making the right decisions and passing information back upstream, you really want to make sure you've got as much of the data as possible. So missing data, in my mind, is bad. Anything from you, Laslo, about missing data that you haven't mentioned so far?
It's my job to be able to provide as much information as I can. So if I don't have the information, then I need to figure out how to get it. So yeah, I need to know what I'm missing and then figure out how to remedy that. So yeah, missing data is a problem.
Okay, excellent. Hopefully that answered your question. Where can I run the cClear? Yeah, that's probably a good point. I probably didn't make that as clear as I should have done in the topology picture. cClear can run as a virtual appliance. It can also run as a kind of a cloud appliance, and you can also run them in kind of on-prem kind of hardware kind of appliances as well. And when you license, that's probably multiple, is probably getting a little bit complicated, but you can effectively deploy that in kind of multiple locations, or you can break down your network. Maybe if you've got a data center in New Jersey and you've got a data center in London and maybe one further across, possibly in Singapore, maybe you can run a cClear in each location, something like that. Lots of different choices to be able to deploy the cClear to get that maximum capabilities. You may have different teams running the networks in the various locations, so you don't need to drag that back across the world to a single location. But I need to always be thinking about how I get Laslo his reports for his management. And the point being is that that is one way to do it. You can deploy another cClear, allow you to have like a centralized location as well. So yeah, it's quite flexible, great tool. And I'm going to say it again, I'd love to tell you more about it if there's something that is particularly on your mind. Okay. think I've got another question here in the chat. It says, can cPacket consolidate packet capture searches? It is sometimes hard to search across many VM disks. It's probably a slice of that question is probably not too clear to me, but basically we can. So if we are in the process of capturing the packets, so maybe we've got a number of brokers, or you're using span ports or tunnels, you're trying to focus all of that traffic back into a single single C store or multiple capture appliances. We definitely can, so that when you come into the C clear and you search for whatever it might be, you're maybe looking for a packet type, or you're trying to understand what's going on, it will aggregate all of that data together. So you'll get effectively one kind of PCAP or that kind of thing, because you've brought together all of that data. So hopefully that answers the question there. But I think the answer is yes. We can help you do that. Maybe you've got a distributed environment. Maybe it's a bit of an on-prem hybrid type situation. We can certainly pull together all of that data, so you can run that one search from the C clear, and it'll pull all of that data back in. The other thing that we can do, and I know I don't think it's your question, but I'm just going to give it an opportunity to jump in. When I'm using the C views and I'm doing network search, I can actually live search the network too, so that as the data is passing through all of these smart ports, I'm able to look for, if you remember back, we've had a number of those well-publicized hack attacks running on many enterprise networks, maybe even your own Heartbleed and other kinds of things. And one of those allowed you to track for DNS, so DNS target it was calling out to. And with the C views, you can just come into the C clear and say, I want to search for that target, DNS target. And then immediately it'll program that into all of the smart ports, so all the data flowing through that infrastructure. And then within 10 seconds, you'll get a report which says exactly where those machines are on the infrastructure, coming back to the where's my device. But it'll actually tell you exactly which ones are infected. So that is a huge benefit for you as an administrator, and certainly for simplifying your complex life. That is really going to help you. So any other last closing questions? Oh, here we go. Another one. What is the current rate of packet drops for CView, and are there any tools available or will be available to supplement or address this issue? Oh, that's very, very interesting. So certainly if you are working on a CView and you are, maybe I didn't make myself clear earlier, and I apologize for that. Bottom line is you shouldn't get any packet drops on the ingress side, because you've got the FPGAs deployed on each of the ports, and they're effectively working at wire rate, so that you're not sending things back to a centralized CPU. If in the unlikely event that you have connected up a series of tools and maybe they're getting a little overwhelmed, or there's too much data being sent to them, you can in fact limit that. You can maybe slice the packets and just send the headers and things like that. There's lots of ways to kind of mitigate the idea of kind of packets or missing data. So that is a hugely important question, and I would love to be able to discuss that further, because there are probably some nuances there which I'm not quite grasping from the question. But bottom line is CView-NG specifically, because of the FPGA architecture, on the ingress side, you're gonna get all of the data. You're going to see everything that's going through the system, and I'm excited to show that to whoever would like to see it. But in terms of when you're then sending the stuff out to the tools, if you need to add another tool, or there's some challenge on that side, we can definitely help with that, because you're able to do deduplication. You're able to maybe slice the packets. You're going to send less load over to those tools to try and mitigate that. And the CView will tell you exactly all of the facts of, what's the rate on the ingress side, what's the rate on the egress side, etc., etc. Maybe I'm floundering around there a little bit. Apologize. If you want more detail, absolutely reach out to cPacket or to myself directly. I think maybe we've got time for one more question, if there's anyone who would like to bash one in. Elsewise, it only goes for me to say, Laslo, thank you very much for joining me today on the webinar, and appreciate you working with me on it. Anything you've learned today? Anything that the audience would like to maybe needs to know in a summary?
I'm always learning here. It is incredible to work with the kind of engineers that I do. I am impressed every day. So, and it shows in this product. So thank you for letting me speak to my knowledge, and I hope to do this again.
Fantastic. Thanks, Laslo. And thanks to you for joining, everyone. I think there's a QR code there you can jump on. You can follow us on LinkedIn. If you want to talk to me, as I said, my name is Iain Kenny. That's 2 I's and 2 E's. So you can look me up on LinkedIn if you'd like. Reach out. Happy to connect. Happy to answer more questions. I look forward to speaking to you again on the next webinar.